10 Golden Age stars who cheated with their co-stars. Number 3 is heartbreaking. Behind the glitz and glamour of Hollywood's Golden Age lay secrets that studio executives paid millions to hide. The passionate affairs, heartbreaking betrayals, and career-destroying scandals that unfolded when the cameras stopped rolling. While America idolized these larger-than-life stars as paragons of virtue and romance, the truth behind closed doors was far more scandalous than anything that ever made it to the silver screen. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on Hollywood's most explosive secret, the forbidden romances that ignited between married co-stars when directors yelled, "Cut." These weren't just casual flings. They were passionate, destructive love affairs that shattered marriages, ruined reputations, and in one heartbreaking case, cost a beloved actress nearly everything she held dear. You think the tabloids today are scandalous? The Golden Age of Hollywood wrote the rulebook on concealing celebrity indiscretions. Studio fixers worked around the clock to ensure these affairs remained hidden from the public, going to extraordinary lengths to maintain the carefully crafted images of their valuable stars. Photographers were paid off, hotel staff were silenced, and in some shocking cases, even pregnancies were elaborately concealed through a web of deception that seems almost unbelievable today. What makes these stories so compelling isn't just the scandal, it's understanding how these forbidden romances transformed Hollywood history. Films we cherish today were often created amid emotional turmoil as real-life affairs played out between takes. The chemistry that captivates us on screen wasn't always acting. It was the visible evidence of passion that couldn't be contained, even as cameras rolled. By the time you finish this video, you'll understand why one film historian remarked, "The real dramas in Hollywood never made it to the screen. They happened in dressing rooms and on location shoots, where passion overruled professional boundaries and sometimes destroyed lives in the process." Stay with us as we reveal the 10 most shocking co-star affairs from Hollywood's golden era. Stories of passion, betrayal, and in the case of number 3, a heartbreaking price that forever changed one star's life and legacy.
Oh, I wish you hadn't.
Why not?
Oh, I haven't let myself think about that.
1. Clark Gable and Loretta Young, The Secret Child. When Clark Gable and Loretta Young were cast in Call of the Wild in 1935, studio executives never anticipated the life-changing consequences their on-location romance would create. Gable, already married to his second wife Maria Rhea Langham, was Hollywood's reigning king. Young was a devout Catholic known for her wholesome image and strict moral code. Their affair began during the frigid shoot in Washington state. Isolated from civilization and away from prying eyes, Gable's charm proved irresistible to the 22-year-old Young. According to the film's assistant director, the isolation created this bubble where normal rules didn't seem to apply. They thought no one would ever know. But reality came crashing down when Young discovered she was pregnant, a potentially career-ending scandal for both stars. What followed was one of Hollywood's most elaborate cover-ups. Young disappeared from public view, secretly gave birth to a daughter, and then orchestrated a bizarre adoption of her own child. She later returned to Hollywood with what she claimed was her newly adopted daughter, Judy. A makeup artist who worked with Young later revealed, "It wasn't just an affair, it was a lifelong secret with a child at the center." Loretta would do her own daughter's makeup before anyone came to the house, darkening her eyebrows and reshaping her ears, which were identical to Gable's. The lengths she went to hide the truth were heartbreaking. For decades, Young maintained the adoption story, even to Judy herself. It wasn't until 1966 that Judy discovered the truth, overhearing a stranger remark on her striking resemblance to Clark Gable. When confronted, Young finally admitted the secret she had kept for more than 30 years. What makes this affair particularly remarkable is how successful the cover-up was in an era before digital manipulation and social media. Young's career survived intact. Gable never publicly acknowledged his daughter, and the studio system protected its valuable assets at all costs. Judy Lewis, the product of this secret affair, later became an actress herself and wrote in her memoir, "I lived my life as a lie. My birth was a shameful secret that had to be hidden at all costs. And I never understood why until I was an adult, looking into a mirror and seeing Clark Gable staring back at me." The affair between Gable and Young didn't just create momentary scandal. It created a living secret that 3 people carried for decades, reshaping their lives in ways that reverberated far beyond that remote film set in 1935.
What I feel, I should have felt long ago, when I was very young,
when I could say to myself that this was how love was.
2. Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, Erotic Vagrancy. Perhaps no Hollywood affair has ever captured public attention like the explosive romance between Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton on the set of Cleopatra in 1963. What began as the most expensive film ever made quickly became the backdrop for the scandal of the century. Taylor was married to her fourth husband, singer Eddie Fisher, whom she had notoriously stolen from America's sweetheart Debbie Reynolds. Just a few years earlier, Burton was married to Sybil Williams, his wife of 14 years. None of these commitments mattered once Taylor and Burton locked eyes. Their attraction was immediate and overwhelming. The film's director, Joseph L. Mankiewicz, later claimed, "I would say, cut, and they would still be kissing. It wasn't acting. It was the real thing happening right there on film." The production became secondary to their burgeoning affair, with shooting schedules frequently delayed because the stars disappeared to their dressing rooms together. What distinguished this affair from others in Hollywood history was that they made absolutely no attempt to hide it. They flaunted their passion openly in restaurants and hotels across Rome, where the film was being shot. Photos of their intimate moments splashed across newspapers worldwide, creating a media firestorm unlike anything Hollywood had seen before. The scandal reached such proportions that the Vatican issued a formal condemnation, accusing Taylor of erotic vagrancy and condemning their behavior as a threat to the institution of marriage. Even the U.S. government got involved, with a congressman denouncing their moral degradation on the floor of the House of Representatives. A Cleopatra crew member later revealed, "They didn't care who they hurt, as long as they had each other. It was like watching two people possessed. Nothing else mattered. Not their spouses, not their careers, not even the millions of dollars at stake in the production. They were consumed by each other." The affair destroyed both their marriages. Taylor divorced Fisher, Burton divorced Williams, and in 1964, the scandalous lovers married. But their passion remained as volatile as it had been on set. They divorced in 1974, remarried in 1975, and divorced again in 1976. Their relationship as dramatic off-screen as any role they ever played. Film historian David Thompson wrote, "Their affair didn't just change their lives, it transformed Hollywood itself. After Burton and Taylor, the public's expectation of star behavior changed. The era of carefully managed images was giving way to a new, more transparent celebrity culture. Their legendary passion produced some of cinema's most memorable collaborations, including Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, where their real-life volatility infused their performances with an authenticity that couldn't be faked, but it also left tremendous pain in its wake for their abandoned spouses, for their children, and ultimately for each other."
You revealed the big secret that your mother is Ingrid Bergman. The other big secret is your father is the great filmmaker Roberto Rossellini.
Yes.
You grew up in Rome, right?
Thank you.
3. Ingrid Bergman and Roberto Rossellini, The Heartbreaking Price. Now we come to the most devastating affair on our list, one that cost its star nearly everything she held dear. When Ingrid Bergman traveled to Italy in 1949 to film Stromboli with acclaimed neo-realist director Roberto Rossellini, she was at the pinnacle of Hollywood stardom. Fresh from classics like Casablanca and Notorious, Bergman embodied wholesomeness and grace to millions of adoring fans. Rossellini was married with a son, and Bergman was married to neurosurgeon Peter Lindstrom, with whom she had a 10-year-old daughter, Pia. But within weeks of meeting, Bergman and Rossellini were embroiled in a passionate affair. Their remote filming location on the volcanic island of Stromboli provided little privacy, and news of their relationship quickly reached the press. Then came the announcement that shook Hollywood. Bergman was pregnant with Rossellini's child. In an era when morality clauses were standard in studio contracts, this was more than scandal. It was professional. The backlash was immediate and merciless. Bergman was denounced from pulpits across America. Theater owners removed her pictures from lobbies and refused to show her films. Most shockingly, she was even condemned on the floor of the United States Senate, where Colorado Senator Edwin Johnson declared her a powerful influence for evil and Hollywood's apostle of degradation. The most devastating consequence came when her ex-husband, Lindstrom, refused to let Bergman see their daughter Pia. The courts granted him full custody, and Bergman was effectively separated from her firstborn child for many years. A close friend of Bergman's later revealed, she gave up her career, reputation, and child, all for a man who left her anyway. I've never seen someone pay such a terrible price for following their heart. There were nights when I'd find her sobbing uncontrollably, looking at photos of Pia, wondering if her daughter would ever forgive her. Bergman and Rossellini married in May 1950, following her divorce from Lindstrom. They had 3 children together, a son and twin daughters, one of whom is actress Isabella Rossellini. But the relationship that had cost Bergman so dearly didn't last. Rossellini began having affairs, and they divorced in 1957. The cruel irony is that just as her marriage to Rossellini was ending, Bergman was finally welcomed back to Hollywood, winning an Academy Award for Anastasia in 1956. Her exile had lasted 7 years. In her absence, social attitudes had begun to shift, and the studio system that had once enforced such rigid moral codes was losing its grip on the industry. Film critic Roger Ebert later wrote, "Bergman's treatment reveals the stunning hypocrisy of the era. Male stars routinely had affairs without consequence, while Bergman's career was nearly destroyed for falling in love with the wrong man at the wrong time. The punishment far exceeded the so-called crime." Bergman eventually reconciled with her daughter Pia and rebuilt her career, but the scars remained. Years later, when asked if she had regrets, Bergman replied simply, "I have no regrets. I regret the things I didn't do, not what I did. I've lived my life. I made my choices. How can you regret being true to yourself, even when the cost is so high?"
Like it?
I love it.
You know, it's hard to believe that a girl like you ever came from Missouri.
4. Joan Crawford and Clark Gable, Hollywood's longest affair. Clark Gable appears twice on our list, and with good reason. His decades-long affair with Joan Crawford stands as one of Hollywood's most enduring secret relationships. Beginning when they co-starred in Dance Fools Dance in 1931, their passion continued through 8 films together and multiple marriages to other people. MGM's head, Louis B. Mayer, actively encouraged their on-screen pairings because of their undeniable chemistry, while simultaneously working to ensure their off-screen relationship remained hidden from the public, a studio publicist later revealed. Mayer knew about Crawford and Gable from the beginning. He just made sure they were never caught. Cars with darkened windows, private entrances to hotels, stand-ins who would pose as them in public with their actual spouses. The studio orchestrated everything. Their affair persisted even after Gable met and married actress Carole Lombard in 1939. Surprisingly, according to Crawford's personal assistant, Lombard was aware of the ongoing attraction between her husband and Crawford. Carole once told Joan to her face, "You can have him on set, but he always comes home to me." It was Hollywood's strangest détente. After Lombard's tragic death in a 1942 plane crash, Gable and Crawford reportedly rekindled their physical relationship during the filming of They All Kissed the Bride. A wardrobe supervisor claimed they couldn't stay away from each other, even if it meant lying to everyone else. After Carole died, all bets were off. Joan thought she might finally have him for good, but it wasn't to be. Gable never committed fully to Crawford, and she eventually tired of waiting. Their professional collaborations ended, but according to those who knew them, they maintained a complicated emotional connection until Gable's death in 1960. Crawford's daughter Christina, in an unpublished section of her memoir, wrote, "My mother kept a special box of photographs of her and Gable. On the anniversary of his death each year, she would take them out, pour a drink, and lock herself in her room for hours. Whatever they had shared never really ended for her." Their affair spanned nearly 30 years, weathered multiple marriages, and remained largely hidden from the public, a testament to both the power of the studio system to protect its stars and the genuine connection between 2 of Hollywood's most iconic figures.
When I hold your hand, there's some little something that I miss. What has become of the warmth in your smile?
5. Lana Turner and Tyrone Power, The Passionate Fling. When Lana Turner and Tyrone Power co-starred in Johnny Apollo in 1940, they created one of Hollywood's most visually stunning couples. He was already married to French actress Annabella, and at the height of his fame as 20th Century Fox's biggest romantic lead, Turner was just 19 and already gaining notoriety as a sex symbol. Their attraction was instantaneous and overwhelming. Turner later admitted in private correspondence, "It wasn't a kiss for the cameras, it was real. The director would yell, 'Cut!' and we wouldn't stop. We couldn't stop." According to a set electrician who worked on the film, they turned a studio lot into a battlefield of lust. They would disappear into his dressing room between takes and emerged disheveled and glowing. Everyone knew, but no one talked. Power was too valuable to the studio, and Turner was becoming their next big star. What made their affair particularly risky was Power's marriage to Annabella, which was highly publicized and popular with fans. 20th Century Fox had invested heavily in presenting Power as the ideal husband, and news of infidelity would have damaged his carefully crafted image. The studio took extraordinary measures to keep their relationship under wraps. A studio security guard later claimed, "We were instructed to warn them if Annabella ever came to the set unexpectedly. There was actually a special bell that would ring in his dressing room if she arrived. They had it down to a science." The affair burned intensely but briefly. By the time filming wrapped, both stars had moved on to new projects and new romances. However, those who worked with them in later years claim they always maintained a special connection. A makeup artist who worked with Turner in the 1950s revealed, "Whenever Power's name came up, her eyes would get this faraway look. Once, after a few drinks, she told me he was the one man who could match her passion for passion. Then she said something I never forgot. Some flames burn out, the ones with Ty left scars." Their brief but intense affair exemplifies the environment that existed on studio lots during Hollywood's golden era, where proximity, passion, and opportunity created the perfect conditions for romance, regardless of existing commitments.
Why do you say these things to me? You know I love you more than anything in the world.
6. Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier, From Affair to Madness. The affair between Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier began in 1936 during the production of Fire Over England and led to one of Hollywood's most celebrated yet troubled marriages. Both were married to others at the time, Leigh to barrister Lee Holman and Olivier to actress Jill Esmond. Their connection was immediate and all-consuming. Olivier later wrote in his memoirs, "I couldn't help myself with Vivien. No man could. She was so incredibly beautiful, so entirely desirable. I felt like a moth, drawn to a flame that would inevitably consume me." What makes their affair unique is that, unlike many others on our list, they eventually divorced their spouses and married each other in 1940. Their union was celebrated as the perfect marriage of theatrical royalty, with their collaborations in films like That Hamilton Woman, and their stage performances of Shakespeare creating an artistic legacy that seemed to justify their scandalous beginnings. But the passion that began in betrayal eventually unraveled in tragedy. Leigh's increasingly erratic behavior, later diagnosed as bipolar disorder, strained their relationship. Moreover, according to several biographers, Leigh continued to have affairs with co-stars throughout their marriage, creating a painful parallel to how their relationship began. A stage manager who worked with both stars in the late 1940s revealed their love started with betrayal and ended in madness. The terrible irony was that Olivier had to watch Vivien do to him what they had done to their first spouses, and worse, he had to witness her slow descent into mental illness, which turned their passion into a prison for them both. After 20 years together, they divorced in 1960. Olivier moved on to a new marriage with actress Joan Plowright, while Leigh continued to struggle with her mental health until her death from tuberculosis in 1967. Theater director Peter Hall once observed, "They paid for their passion with years of torment. What began as the most glamorous affair in theatrical history ended as a cautionary tale about the price of getting exactly what you want." Their story reminds us that even when affairs lead to marriage, the circumstances of their beginning can cast long shadows. As Olivier himself wrote years later, "Vivien and I were consumed by a fire of our own making. It gave us unimaginable heights of passion and depths of pain that I suspect neither of us ever fully recovered from."
They're holding the plane for us.
Goodbye, Gerald.
7. Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn, Hollywood's Open Secret. The 26-year affair between Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn stands as Hollywood's longest-running open secret. Beginning when they co-starred in Woman of the Year in 1942, their relationship continued until Tracy's death in 1967, spanning 9 films and nearly 3 decades. What made their affair unique was Tracy's refusal to divorce his wife, Louise. A devout Catholic, Tracy remained married despite living separately from Louise for most of their later years. This created the strange situation where Hepburn, one of Hollywood's biggest stars, existed as an unacknowledged partner, unable to claim her relationship publicly or even attend Tracy's funeral. A director who worked with them on multiple films noted, "They weren't just partners, they were each other's second lives. It was the strangest arrangement everyone in Hollywood knew, but in public, they maintained this elaborate fiction that they were merely frequent co-stars with exceptional chemistry." Studio executives actively encouraged their on-screen collaborations while simultaneously helping them maintain privacy. Their films together, including classics like Adam's Rib and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, were built around their natural rapport, with directors often incorporating elements of their real relationship into their characters. Hepburn's niece, Catherine Houghton, who co-starred with them in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Tracy's final film, later revealed they had developed this private language, these looks and gestures that communicated volumes. Sometimes watching them work was like eavesdropping on a private conversation. The camera captured something genuine that wasn't acting at all. Perhaps the most poignant aspect of their relationship was Hepburn's devotion during Tracy's final years as his health declined due to heart disease and diabetes. Though they never lived together permanently, she essentially put her life on hold to care for him during his illnesses, all while maintaining the public fiction that they were merely colleagues. Director Stanley Kramer recalled, "During the filming of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Spencer was very ill. Catherine made a deal with the studio that she would do the film for minimal salary if they would insure Tracy, who was otherwise uninsurable due to his health. Then, she would come early each day to make sure everything was prepared perfectly for him, minimizing his stress. Her devotion was extraordinary, and all the more remarkable because she could never publicly claim her role in his life." After Tracy's death, Hepburn didn't speak publicly about their relationship for many years. When she finally did in her 1991 autobiography, she wrote simply, "I loved Spencer Tracy. I would have done anything for him." The woman, known for her fierce independence and outspokenness, had kept her greatest love story largely private out of respect for Tracy's marriage and faith. Their affair, conducted with dignity and discretion, stands as a counterpoint to the more explosive scandals on our list. Proof that even in the fishbowl of Hollywood fame, it was possible to maintain a private realm that honored all parties involved. 8. Greta Garbo and John Gilbert, the silent film scandal. When Greta Garbo and John Gilbert fell passionately in love while filming Flesh and the Devil in 1926, their affair created one of the silent era's most explosive scandals. Gilbert was married to his second wife, Leatrice Joy, but that didn't stop him from pursuing his enigmatic Swedish co-star with single-minded determination. Their on-screen kisses in Flesh and the Devil remain some of the most genuinely erotic moments in silent cinema, largely because they weren't acting. The film's cinematographer, William Daniels, later recalled, "We didn't need to direct those scenes. They were genuinely consumed with each other. Sometimes we would just let the camera roll and capture whatever happened between them." What made their affair particularly remarkable was how quickly it progressed from professional collaboration to all-consuming passion. Within weeks of meeting, Gilbert had left his wife and proposed to Garbo. According to MGM staff, he was desperate to make their relationship legitimate, buying a mansion for them and planning an elaborate wedding. But Garbo, always enigmatic and fiercely independent, had different ideas. A studio executive later claimed, "She wanted the passion, not the paperwork." She left him literally waiting at the altar. The wedding was arranged, guests were arriving, and Garbo simply didn't show up. Gilbert was devastated, humiliated in front of the entire industry. Despite this public humiliation, their affair continued intermittently, fueling their performances in subsequent films together. Their professional collaboration produced 4 successful films, but their personal relationship became increasingly volatile. When sound films arrived, Gilbert's career collapsed due to his unsuitable voice, while Garbo's star continued to rise. The power dynamic between them shifted dramatically, adding another complicated layer to their already tumultuous relationship. Film historian Robert Osborne wrote, "What began as one of Hollywood's most passionate affairs ended as a cautionary tale. Gilbert never recovered from his obsession with Garbo, professionally or personally. She was the great love and the great devastation of his life." Gilbert died in 1936 at just 38 years old, his health ruined by alcoholism that many close to him attributed to his tumultuous relationship with Garbo Garbo, true to her reclusive nature, never attended his funeral and rarely spoke of him publicly again, though those close to her claimed she kept a photograph of him in her apartment until her death in 1990. Their affair reminds us that even in the silent era, before social media and global paparazzi, stars' personal lives could still become public spectacle, with consequences that sometimes outlasted their careers.
But you can try, you can try, you can try.
You can't kiss 'em all.
9. Debbie Reynolds and Robert Wagner, The Unexpected Liaison. One of Hollywood's lesser-known but most intriguing rumored affairs occurred between America's sweetheart Debbie Reynolds and heartthrob Robert Wagner while filming Say One For Me in 1959. What makes this alleged liaison particularly interesting is the timing. It came shortly after Reynolds' humiliating public divorce from Eddie Fisher, who had left her for Elizabeth Taylor in what was then Hollywood's most notorious love triangle. Wagner was romantically linked with Natalie Wood during this period, though they were temporarily separated. According to a makeup artist who worked on the film, they were both married, they were also both bored and wounded. Debbie was still reeling from the Eddie Fisher humiliation, and Wagner was in this on-again, off-again thing with Natalie. They found comfort in each other. Unlike many affairs on our list, Reynolds and Wagner reportedly conducted their relationship with extreme discretion. A production assistant claimed, "It never happened on set. They were consummate professionals during filming. But there were late-night meetings at a private bungalow in Malibu. The studio arranged everything. Drivers who wouldn't talk, property where they wouldn't be seen." What's particularly notable about this alleged affair is how successfully it was kept from the public. In an era when Reynolds was under intense scrutiny following the Fisher-Taylor scandal, the studio's ability to shield this relationship demonstrated the still considerable power of the Hollywood publicity machine. Reynolds never confirmed or denied the rumor, though in her 2013 autobiography, she wrote cryptically about this period. "After Eddie, I found comfort in unexpected places. Some stories aren't mine alone to tell." Wagner has similarly never addressed the speculation. A close friend of Reynolds later told a biographer, "After the public humiliation with Eddie and Elizabeth, Debbie needed to feel desirable again. With Wagner, she found that. It wasn't love, it was healing. And sometimes that's more important." This rumored affair, conducted quietly and without the public drama that characterized many Hollywood relationships, represents the countless unconfirmed liaisons that likely occurred throughout the studio era, remembered now only in the fading memories of those who worked behind the scenes.
We're having a baby.
10. Desi Arnaz and multiple co-stars, The Serial Philanderer. Our final entry focuses not on a single affair, but on a pattern of infidelity that ultimately destroyed one of television's most beloved marriages. While Lucille Ball captivated America as the lovable, zany housewife in I Love Lucy, her real-life husband, Desi Arnaz, was engaging in numerous affairs with co-stars, showgirls, and even extras from their hit show. The bitter irony was that while millions of Americans invited Lucy and Desi into their living rooms each week as the perfect couple, behind the scenes their marriage was crumbling under the weight of Arnaz's constant infidelities. According to multiple Desilu staff members, Arnaz made little effort to hide his philandering from the production team. A set designer who worked on I Love Lucy revealed he played the faithful husband on TV and ran a hotel room behind the scenes. We all knew. What was heartbreaking was that Lucy knew too. She would sometimes get calls at the studio from women he was involved with, either trying to hurt her or warn her. The look on her face those days was devastating. What makes Arnaz's behavior particularly striking was the contrast between his public and private personas. On screen, he played the sometimes exasperated but always loving Ricky Ricardo. Creating with Ball one of television's most idealized marriages off-screen, his infidelities were so numerous that they became an open secret throughout Hollywood. Betty White, who worked with both stars, later commented, "Everyone loved Desi. He was charming, talented, and impossible to stay angry with, but his weakness for women was his undoing. The saddest part was watching Lucy try to pretend she didn't know when everyone around them was aware of what was happening. The strain eventually became too much, and despite creating a groundbreaking show and a successful production company together, Ball filed for divorce in 1960. When asked by reporters about the reason for their separation, she simply said, "We just couldn't hold it together." Years later, in a rare candid interview, Arnaz admitted, "I was a lousy husband. Lucy deserved better. The one thing I never did, though, was stop loving her." According to those who knew them, this was perhaps the greatest tragedy of their story, that genuine love existed alongside behaviors that made their marriage ultimately unsustainable. Their daughter, Lucy Arnaz, later revealed, "My father loved my mother until the day he died, but loving someone and being good for them are two different things. He couldn't be what she needed, though I believe he always wished he could have been." The story of Desi's infidelities serves as a powerful reminder that the perfect marriages portrayed on screen during Hollywood's golden age often masked much more complicated and painful realities, and that even television's most iconic couple couldn't escape the destructive power of betrayal. The golden age of Hollywood created a world of fantasy that millions of Americans escaped into during weekly trips to movie palaces across the country. But behind the perfect romances that played out on screen were real people, complicated, flawed, and subject to the same temptations and weaknesses as anyone else. What makes these affairs fascinating isn't just their scandalous nature, but how they shape the films we love. That electric chemistry in Cleopatra, it was real passion burning between Taylor and Burton. The heartbreaking authenticity in Ingrid Bergman's performance in Stromboli, she was living the emotional turmoil her character portrayed. These affairs changed lives, ended marriages, and in some cases, altered Hollywood history itself. Some stars paid a devastating price for following their hearts, while others emerged relatively unscathed. The difference often came down to gender, power, and the whims of public opinion. If you enjoyed this glimpse behind Hollywood's carefully constructed facade, hit the like button and subscribe for more revelations about cinema's golden age. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most compelling dramas never made it to the screen.